Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first committee meeting of 2024 and our first committee meeting called Family, Education and Justice, which gives us a wee bit more of a spread of interest, which I think will be interesting, actually. As usual, just remind you that this is being recorded, and anybody online, just put up your digital hand and I'll see you. You can see we've got other people here just now, but I'm not going to introduce them to them. I'm not going to introduce them to you just now because you won't remember all the names. So as we go through number 5, I'll introduce them. So apologies and substitutes, Liz.
Thank you, Convener. We've got apologies from Councillor Shepherd and Braes, with Councillor Boyd and Councillor Duff substituting, and also Councillor Gavin Nicholl. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2 is declarations of interest and statements of transparency. Oh, Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. This is just a statement of transparency because I possibly will want to ask some questions on that one particular school. I have a granddaughter who's at Lochside Primary School Nursery.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gregg, Councillor Nicholl. Greg first, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Having reviewed Section 5 of the Code of Conduct, I've decided to give a statement of transparency that I have a family member who's a primary school teacher at Lethen Primary School. Having reviewed this Code of Conduct, I've decided that it's not significant enough to not let me take part, so I will take part in the meeting. Thank you.
And Councillor Nicholl.
For transparency, I have a child that attends Lethen Nursery.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 3 is a minute of the previous meeting. Are you happy to agree the minute?
Agreed.
Thank you. And number 4 is the appointment of church representative. We're asked to agree or approve the appointment of the Reverend A, who's the Minister of Arbroath West Kirk. Are you happy to approve that? Great, thank you. And Reverend Christine Hay will be invited to the next meeting. And we go on to number 5, which is Angus School Inspection Reports. Neil Loudon is going to introduce this paper. This is different for us now because up till recently we were just told about these by email and they were information reports. So we didn't get a chance to talk to anybody about them. Prior to that, actually, I remember them coming to the Children and Learning Committee, but they were as information reports again, and it was not for really any discussion. However, we thought that it would be a really good idea to have head teachers here today, having gone through the awfulness of inspections, and they can answer questions, but Neil will answer questions as well. I'll introduce you to them as we go through the inspection reports, if that's okay. But I want to thank you so much for coming today because it's right at the beginning of term and it is a very, very busy time. So thank you very much. And do feel free, if after number 5 you want to leave, if you want to get back to school, that would be absolutely fine. Otherwise, you're welcome to stay for number 6. Right, Neil. Over to you.
Thank you, Convener. Afternoon, everyone. It does give us great delight to bring reports to committee, and we're very proud of our schools in Angus, and I'm pleased to showcase some of their findings from 5 of our schools following their recent engagement in the inspection process. You'll see from the paper as a point of information we have 1 school, Strathmore Primary, who were inspected under the full model, and our other 4 schools engaged with the short model through the inspection process. I've outlined the different approaches of inspection within the report, and I would also ask you to note the difference in the QIs between ELC 3.2 and Schools 3.2, raising attainment and achievement and securing children's progress. I would ask the committee to note that in all our reports, our children are identified as our key strength, followed by the hard work of the staff team in all of the schools and the partnerships that schools adopt with parents and their local communities. The reports are testament to the support and care given to our children and young people so that they can achieve anything and anyone thought more than possible. Convener would ask members to give consideration to the 4 statements listed in the recommendation section of the report, and as you stated, we've got 5 of our head teacher colleagues here with us to expand on any reports as necessary. Thank you.
you. Shall we just go on to Borofield Primary? We'll go on to Borofield Primary School now, and the head teacher from Borofield is Leslie Malloy here, and she will answer questions if you want to ask them of her. Anybody got questions there? Councillor Duff?
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, and I'd certainly like to congratulate the head teacher and staff on the inspection report, which looks very good. I guess I've just got one question, really out of curiosity. I assume the school does get PEF funding, and if so, what was that spent on? What sort of things was the PEF funding spent on?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Duff. Yes, we do get PEF funding, and that was spent on a range of things. Part of it was spent on a contract we have with New Solutions. I don't know if you're aware of New Solutions, right, okay. So we have a team from their company that comes in 1 day a week and supports our children and their parents, the families, and also staff if they need to. And they're a very important partner of the school. We've also used PEF to support some of our flexible learning pathways. So, for example, we took in a group of people from Arbroath, the Skills group. I don't know if you've heard of them. So they were young chaps that came in and did music mixing and DJing things with our children. So we found that worked particularly well. We've also done cooking classes, and we try to identify ways to engage our pupils, give them something different, a different interest, see who's out there and who we can bring into school to support them, to give them.
Thanks very much. I mean, I did have a visit to Borofield last year. I think you were off that day, but we got a very good tour, and I was quite impressed with what I saw. And I was contacted recently by somebody. The school was keen to do a litter pick in the area, etc. That sort of thing is, I think, worthwhile, and that's good to hear. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Bell?
Thank you very much, Ms Malloy. I was really interested to read the reports, and well done on the information therein. I'm particularly interested in outdoor learning opportunities, and I know that's something that we use throughout all our schools. I just wondered if you could maybe tease out for us what you feel that brings to children in terms of their readiness for learning, and if you also bring in external specialists to help support some of that work, because it's quite an interesting range of opportunities that the children have, which sounds fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Bell. Yes, we play a huge importance on outdoor learning. That is something that we actually have to thank COVID for. Prior to that, it was really, if a teacher was particularly interested in it, or we felt it was appropriate, we would take children outdoors and do learning outdoors. Whereas after COVID, we realised that all children virtually love to be outdoors. So we get out as much as we possibly can from nursery to primary 7. We have a chap that comes in 1 day a week called Stuart Troop, and this is done through New Solutions. He's a forest schools expert, so he takes groups of children out and teaches them all sorts of skills. And we monitor and track the skills that the children are managing to achieve as time goes on, so that the children have targets and they work towards them as well. But it's really the whole outdoor learning approach improves health and well-being, not just for the children, but for the staff as well, to be honest. It increases their motivation, and they just absolutely love to do their learning outside.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to say, to highlight from your school? There is so much in the report, and there's so much in all the reports, isn't there, which shows just how much work goes on in the schools in all sorts of ways. But is there anything particular?
I would just like to say that I work with a great team of people, for which I'm very grateful. We were well supported by AVS. I think it all just, we were pleased with the report, and I think the team that came out just got us and they understood what we were trying to do. So I was quite happy.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, if that's all, there, can we go on to Lochside now? And Lynette Mimiek is there for questions. Or Neil. I mean, you can still ask Neil.
Thanks, Convener.
Anybody? Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks very much again, Convener. Yeah, again, congratulations on the report. It looked like a good report, and as I said in my declaration, I have a little bit of first-hand knowledge of Lochside Nursery. There was one thing in the comments or report that I found quite interesting, and I wanted to ask some questions about, and that was the Breakfast Club. Just maybe tell us how that's run, how it's funded, how many children go along, and what's the overall feeling about the benefit of that, because I think that is something we are quite interested in, so it would be good to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Duff. Breakfast Club was originally started a number of years ago through participatory budgeting. Actually, we asked our parents what they wanted us to spend our PEF funding on, and this became one of the things. So it started off in that way, but over time it's become much more of a, we wanted to be able to sustain it, long term. There are on average between 30 to 40 children attend every day, that increases in the winter time. We noticed a dramatic increase through the cost of living crisis. It is free to every single pupil in school. And they access it first thing in the morning. It's a grab and go. So you get your breakfast and you take it outside, as it were. However, for younger children, primary 1 to 3, we hold on to them, and then they're supported down back into class when time comes. It's been, and we've done it in various different forms, and the way it's working just now is economical. We can afford to keep it going. We should be able to keep, we've used some discretionary funding through the council as well. That's been really, really helpful to let us keep that going, and to staff it appropriately as well. But yeah, I can't see us ever not doing. It covers two things. One is making sure that children who need a breakfast are getting a breakfast. As a resource school, three things. As a resource school, not all children are ready to eat breakfast when they need to leave for school. So it provides us with that opportunity to give them something in, and that helps with self-regulation actually in that sense. And then the third thing is for working parents. You need to drop your child off before you yourself travel to work. So that's where Breakfast Club is really essential to, and covers a lot of these things in our school. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks very much. So effectively, what you're saying is you think it's sustainable at the moment. That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
On your microphone.
Because of the additional funding that we receive, so we apply for the funding and we've been lucky enough to get it. So, and that makes it possible for us to do it.
That's good. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks for that. That was really interesting to hear. And my question is probably for Neil. I'm just wondering if there are plans to roll out this particular model wider, because it sounds like it's working quite well and it's quite a cost-effective way to do it.
Apologies, thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Just we'll have a number of small tests to change in terms of breakfast clubs, and head teachers have empowerment within their local community to focus on what Lynette was talking about, that element of participatory budgeting. So where there's a need for it, head teachers are empowered within their local communities to look into that. And there's also elements through our parental engagement officers where they will support schools where they feel there is a particular need, but it is on a needs basis and sits within that participatory budgeting element of pupil equity funding for me, and head teachers with their own school communities can make individual decisions.
I was just wondering too if it helps with attendance, because I know that after COVID there's been a lot of difficulty right across the board in the whole country about attendance, and especially perhaps with being a resource school, you might have seen that.
It can do. Again, it's another tool that we have in our toolbox to offer families to support with attendance there. And yeah, so it can be certainly there. And also it helps with punctuality and reducing incidences of lateness as well. So it's again another tool that we can offer to help support families where needed.
Great, thanks very much. And we'll go on to Lochside. No, we won't. We'll go on to Strathmore. Does anybody have a question? Oh, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair, and Happy New Year and a health and happiness to everybody. Just really looking at the in-depth report. Yeah, we certainly were that. And good to see you all here. I'm going to pick on something that is very dear to me, as my background is with children and young people. And in particular, some of them with really challenges that they've got to face in life. So when we go on to, I'll get the right page 11, and we go down there to the primary stages, and you've got ensuring wellbeing, equality and inclusion, and very good there. Now, I pick on that because for me, it's so important. These words mean an awful lot to me, because inclusion in particular, the wellbeing and equality, fair enough, we expect that. Inclusion means a lot. These bairns that are lent to us to help nurture, during the early years, they need so much love and encouragement in some cases. And this particular school in my ward has a fair few bairns with extra support needs. And I do apologise if that's not the usual term, but it's my term. And so, alongside their other peers, they need a lot of help with inclusion, and other bairns need to learn that as well. So it's great to read that, because as they go through their lives, we've already mentioned a pandemic that people have had to put up with at all levels. It's been really hard for families, and especially little bairns. So I'm really delighted to see this. So I want to give my congratulations to you, the parents and the bairns and everybody there. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to say Jennifer Garns is the head teacher there, and I'm sure she would like to talk a little bit about the neurodiversity that they have managed to overcome tremendously by going down a particular route. So,
thanks, Jennifer.
Put on your microphone.
Thank you both for your questions and very, very kind comments. I really, really appreciate that. And I really feel that you understand our school so well, because at Strathmore School, we champion neurodiversity, we champion those that require equity. We think that that is so, so important. It came to a head, actually, just another one of the things that have benefited COVID. It came to a head that we weren't getting it right for the young children at Strathmore. Inclusion was just not working at that time. We needed to change things, and it wasn't about the children changing, it was about us changing. And the whole team at Strathmore looking at what it was we were doing, because at that particular moment of time, we were not getting it right. So at that point, I began to work with Colin Foley from the ADHD Foundation. He came to look at what we did. He listened to our ideas. He gave us tips. And what we did was we spoke to our children and we spoke to our parents, and we actually spoke to the whole school community about what it was that we wanted for our Strathmore children. So what you will expect if you send your child to Strathmore School is equity for all of our children. All of our children have access to visual timetables. All of our children have access to nurture. All of our children have access to social skills groups. All of our children have access to outdoor learning. All of our children are educated in neurodiversity, and it is very much celebrated. Children are so accepting when they see their peers that are needing a bit of extra help, And now our families are accepting of that as well and understand why X child receives different opportunities and experiences at certain points of their education. I'm really proud as well to share we're the first school in Scotland to receive ADHD Friendly School Award. We've also featured in the local press, the national press. We've had visitors from CAMHS come to look at the work that we do at Strathmore. And on December the 5th, I was asked to go down and speak with the Scottish Government at Cosla House about what it is that we do at Strathmore to support our children. So yes, I'm extremely proud of the team that I work with because we had to work so hard to turn around and win hearts and minds.
Thank you very much. That was great. Another comment, is it?
I'd like to come back in, Chair, and I'd just like to say I'm so glad I mentioned what I mentioned. So it gave you the chance to just... bragging rights is important here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're very proud too, and I think it's super for Angus to have that. Have we got... Okay, we're moving on to Carmiley. And we've got Kerry Walker here from Carmiley. So any questions for Carmiley? Oh. Councillor Melville.
Yes, thanks. This is another really, really good report. Very, very pleased to see it. I just wonder if you could expand on some of the work that's being done to incorporate pupil voice into all aspects of learning, because I think it's really, really important.
Thank you, Councillor Melville. I'm delighted to speak about what we do to recognise and acknowledge and for pupil voice to be an integral part of the work that we do at Carmiley, and this has been something that we've built up over time. And we as adults, similar to what I think Jennifer's spoken about, it's about, sometimes it's the adults' approach. We think we are recognising pupil voice, but is it in a meaningful way that actually makes a difference, or is it that what's classed as tokenistic? And the work that we've done with the Rights Respecting Schools, we have our Bronze Award and we've got our accreditation visit coming up this term for silver. So that's been part of our framework, and it's been very much that part of an inclusive approach. So learner voice being integral towards that. So when we go from the planning of the learning, what will that look like with learner voice being, and I would think all my colleagues would say we all do that part and we all do it very well, but it's taken it further. So when the inspection team came in, they very much noted from the moment they walked through the door where rights were visible. And it's not a case of just there was a poster up or an image, it was the children would be able to articulate, we have a right to play. We have a right for adults to do what's best for me, Article 3. Article 12 sings out throughout the school. So you can see that through our school improvement priorities. So some of the money, an example, some of the money we spend on PEF has been very much participatory budgeting. Now that's quite interesting when you're speaking to your youngest learners, right up about what they would like. And the idea from the learners as well as to their part within it has changed from we'd like a swimming pool. We've had that one. To, in actual fact, I think it would be a great idea if we had some of this equipment in the playground, because I've noticed that not everybody likes to do, say, play football. So there's a very clear example of that. We've had rights respecting cafes where we have a community, and the parents also recognise that the voice that children have in terms of their learning, not only is it in the planning of the learning, but that can be how their learning environment looks like. So if I looked at, knowing the reports from all my colleagues, where they talk about the importance of outdoor learning as an example, children's voice will be very key to that. So we have, as I say, it's within our planning, but it takes forward us to the goals that they set as well, and they can see their part in it. So this term we are about to welcome Alba Explorers in a new partnership for us, and that's because they want to explore outdoor learning further, but they have a very clear idea of what they would like from it. So it's going to be very interesting for our new partner to work with that, coming in with perhaps their idea and meeting our idea. We now have an outdoor learning hub. We have repurposed a building, and that's now available, and that's taken a little bit of time, but pupil voices being involved in it. What do you need? And that is also helping them develop skills for learning, life and work.
Thank you. Councillor Bell?
Thank you very much, and thank you that was a really interesting answer, Ms Walker. I really appreciate it. I'm going to sneak in 2 little questions, if you don't mind. I was really interested to see on the questionnaire that the pupils had, that on question 19 you had a really good correlation between the number of children making the link between their homework, helping them to understand and improve their work in school. I just wondered if you have any secrets about how you managed to deliver that great result. And also, the question, I'm not picking on Carmiley for any reason, I promise, but I'm interested in the question about the perception around other children's behaviour, and I wondered if anecdotally you're aware of how children reflect on their own behaviour and how that contributes to the classroom environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. In terms of homework, children traditionally, there can be quite a difference between what parents would like and expect, reflecting their own experience when they were at school, and also what children would like. So we have done consultations around that as to what homework could look like, what would be the benefits of it. We have obviously looked at research as well as if you looked at visible learning, so Hattie's work, where the impact effect of homework, certainly at primary level, and what that can add to it. We're very cognizant as well of the effects of the pandemic on learners and families. I think most of our parents, the majority of our parents would recognise that whilst they did their very best, and they absolutely did, and that was with a sports school, and that's a partnership working, once they have come back, there has been less of a feeling certainly from a number of our parents as to the role for homework, and that they do not want to, it's when children now come home from school. However, within that, so the homework is targeted. That would probably be the best way of saying it. And working with learners and identifying perhaps this could be helpful. And for children to understand, but also I couldn't do that, I panicked about it. We have an excellent relationship with our parents. So if something goes home, and no matter how well we think, and we have explained it and the children can articulate that, when they go home we also have the, no, I don't know what to do, for various reasons. So that communication has also been part of that helping, but it's something we go back and revisit regularly. You asked also a question about children's behaviour and the links with that in the classroom. Can I just clarify, you asked?
Yeah, the question to the children was about other children's behaviour. I was wanting to know what their view of their own behaviour was and how that contributed to the school environment. Thanks.
The view of their own behaviour is really interesting. Children hold themselves up as really quite high expectations of their behaviour a lot of the times, and then how they reflect on that with others. When we look at behaviour within an inclusive environment, recognising neurodiversity, recognising how learners come into school, we see the little one, and Councillor Clark, we absolutely have a privilege that we care for these learners when they're with us. And that part of they come in and other children might not always know what's going on at home. What is it like for them before they come into school? So we very much adapt as we go through the day. Parental communication is fantastic, where somebody might say, just to let you know, and that's incredibly helpful. But we also recognise that through check-ins, health and wellbeing check-ins regularly throughout the day. We have a relationships policy. We go through, we have, are we Carmiley ready? And that can be, are we body ready? And I'm going through are we eyes ready, ears ready, mouth ready, body ready? That isn't to say that we're expecting the same from everybody, because every child is unique. but it is that. So what body ready looks like from one child would be different to another, as an example. But it's those conversations. We use Emotion Works to help with emotional literacy and to educate our learners, and we can really see that difference. What I can see, they're struggling a little bit today. Mrs. Walker, would it be all right? I noticed down at the playground, it's these types of conversations where we talk about behaviour, but they'll also bring examples. Well, but they will also call it out. But they are learning how to call it out in a way that is really quite emotionally mature. And that then helps. Where we may have what parents may class as behavioural issues or that concern, that's a bit where the education comes in. And Jennifer spoke so eloquently about that, about winning hearts and minds, and that we are absolutely an inclusive environment. And within the report, there'll be that wee bit where learners are needing additional support. We are very much in terms of looking at what are the barriers to learning. So rather than how do children perceive their own behaviour, we look at are there possible barriers? How can we address them at an individual, class and whole school level?
Thank you very much. Councillor Proctor has a question.
Thanks very much, Convener. I'd just like to congratulate Carmiley School and all the other schools on their excellent reports. A lot of work goes in and to achieve these standards. My question for Carmiley, are there any service children from Condor, which is pretty not far away from your catchment area, at Carmiley Primary School?
Councillor Proctor, I'm sorry, could you repeat that question for me?
Are there any Are there any children from Condor, from the Naval, the Marines at Condor, service children from Condor at your school? Because it's probably not that far from your catchment area.
Thank you for the question. No, not at present, although we do have service families whose parents are active members of our forces elsewhere. My understanding is I'm certainly aware of families who attend other schools, including Colliston.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that, because sometimes, I know through present experience that the service children sometimes have it a bit hard settling down, because they're on the move, and I'm really, grateful to hear what's going on, and I think you've sort of cater for that. Thank you.
Audrey Osborne would like to come in now.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Just to remind Councillor Proctor and other members that we do have a central team that supports children from service families, and they go around the schools and provide support as required, including, would you believe, a homework club, and just making the links to the earlier conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Audrey. Yeah, well, you can see how schools have changed incredibly since any of us were there. Well, apart from some, of course. Yes, that's wonderful. Thanks very much, Kerry. Now we're going on to Letham Primary. Has anybody got any questions for Letham? Sorry, it's Karen Frayne is the head teacher at Letham. Councillor Gregg, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's not specifically for the head teacher of Letham, but first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming in. It must be quite daunting being asked to come in and appear in front of us mugs here, and hopefully it's not been quite as scary as what you may have thought it to be. And you're very welcome. It would be really good to see you all again at other times, or some of your teachers, or indeed your children as well. So please feel free to bring them along. I'm sure Councillor Devine would enjoy that just as much as the rest of us. My question is for Mr. Loudon. It's my understanding that these reports that were done by the Inspectorate may have been slightly different, as in the expectation from perhaps some of the head teachers. There may have been some of the head teachers expecting slightly better parts to the reports, and then when it was reported, it was a bit of a shock. And my understanding is that that's taken a bit of a dip in morale with some of the staff. So could you please explain to us how the inspections that we do as a council, how they align with the inspectorate, and if there is a dip in morale within our teaching staff, what we as a council can do to help to boost that and support them as much as they may need?
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. You're correct. Our summary self-evaluation did not exactly match our standards and quality report from June in terms of one of the evaluations within the Letham report. Our Angus Virtual School that all the head teachers work and engage with provide a menu of support for all schools across the school year, from pastoral visits in term 1 and pastoral calls to supportive, what I would call triad meetings, where schools are placed together to support and challenge each other. There are then individual visits called progress and learning meetings in term 3, where the school will sit down and present data, multiple data sets around attainment, attendance, participation, inclusion and engagement, and they will be supported and challenged within that. And I use those words aptly in terms of support and challenge, because it's a two-sided coin. And then finally in term 4 we'll carry out any other targeted visits. We'll also do validated self-evaluations, where a team of central officers will go in to support schools in validating their own self-evaluation. Head teachers are empowered within their own school communities with staff in their school. They know their schools best. They will write their summary self-evaluation papers. We will support and challenge them to robustly look at the 6-point scale when it comes to inspection, as we always do. And then within the reports, it's a two-pronged approach. There are input QIs and there are output QIs. So an input QI, for example, at this point would be learning, teaching and assessment, and an output QI would be raising attainment and achievement. An input QI HMI, in my experience, will report in that snapshot in time, if you like. They will report on what they see. They won't report on the previous week or the coming week. They will only, the integrity of the process is about their report in that week on what they see. And some weeks it can be variable, and head teachers in the room I'm sure would tell you that. It is variable. The output QI, we have data sets that we gather over a number of years. It's about, there are 4 themes in 3.2, attainment and literacy and numeracy, attainment over time, opportunities for personal achievement and how we track that, and equity for all learners. But it's about having data sets through all of those themes, and within learning, teaching, assessment, it's not just about the teachers in the classroom, it's about the snapshot in time of learner engagement, the quality of teaching, effective use of planning, tracking and monitoring, and effective use of assessment. And all of those themes play a part in the overall evaluation. So I guess what I'm saying is we have a menu of activity to support and challenge all schools, but empowerment sits at school levels to make those overall evaluations, which we will look at and moderate and robustly challenge, and then we will work with all our schools to prepare for inspection. But the integrity of the process in terms of the input QIs, they will report on what they see. And there are occasions, they're rare, but there are occasions where they don't match. Just to add one other point, we will work as a central team with, led by Leila, to work directly with all school staff to support them, because we would want to get the best, and the outcomes are good for Letham, and in fact very good in terms of some of the attainment. So we will support the school fully in their action plan for improvement in relation to any aspect, as we would with all schools, picked up through an HMI.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener. And this is a general question. I'd welcome answers from any of our head teachers, and thanks for coming along today, or from Neil, indeed. Parents now have the option of a further year of nursery education before they start primary school, and my understanding is that it's normally very beneficial and nobody regrets taking that decision. But in terms of the primary school teachers, does it present a challenge in terms of a wider range of primary ones starting? And are you finding it a big uptake in the number of people that are taking advantage of this?
It's a general question, but would Karen like to answer that?
Thank you for your question. We don't have a great big uptake on deferral year or taking another year in nursery. However, it's one that we would probably as a school fully recommend. It would be based on parental wishes and also the ELCC staff. You know, we can base on whether a child would benefit from another year. I don't personally think it has a great impact on when they go into primary one if they choose not to have that extra year, because the way primary ones are now set up, they're based very much on play pedagogy, so it's really quite an easy transition. And with Curriculum for Excellence, every child at any stage fits into wherever they happen to be. So whether there were another year in nursery or in primary one, their needs would be accommodated.
Thanks very much. Neil, would you like to answer?
Just to add some detail to the figures for Councillor Whiteside, and agree with Karen in terms of the continuity of learning across ELC and into primary one, how vital that is for children getting the best possible start in Angus. We've seen our numbers increase for the first time this year by about 25%. So we were part of the deferral project for the last 2 years, but our deferrals have sat constant at approximately 150, even as part of the project, but we're over 200 this year, interestingly. So there has been a significant increase this session, and we would expect an increase again, projecting an increase again next session. So Councillor Whiteside, you're absolutely right, people are starting to take that additional year within ELC to benefit their child.
As that was a general question, is there anybody else would like to answer? Yes, Kelly.
I think within this is the key part is the parental communication, the partnership that you have within our ELCs. Our staff work at an incredibly high level, and their understanding of all the learners that will be in their setting is second to none. So they will have those conversations and those discussions ongoing as part of their child's experience while they're within the ELC. So they're in a very good position whilst they wouldn't state, but they will help as part of the discussion so that the parents are making a fully, rounded and informed judgment whether they choose to defer or not to. And the second part is, and I think we would all agree, is that our transition processes start very early on. I think, again, looking around the room, our experiences of transitions, either as parents, putting our own children into primary one, or, if we remember our own experiences, would be that you just pretty much went next door. Whereas now it's very much a planned transition, and that reflects the frameworks from the Care Inspectorate and from Education Scotland, and also within the Council and the Early Years team. And it's a very well considered transition. So as Karen said, the transition would be a smooth one, and it's something that the children will be ready for when they're ready for it.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you for all your questions. And thanks to you very much for coming. Hope it wasn't too daunting after all. Told you knew everything off the top of your head anyway. And it just shows just how much is going on in our schools, and I thank you all very much for the fantastic work you're doing and with your teams, because all head teachers that I visit say my team is superb. So thank you all very much. So if you do want to go, feel free. Are you going? No. Okay, sorry, got to go do the recommendations. We've got 4 recommendations. Do we agree these recommendations? Thank you. Okay, we go on to primary school management structures number 6. And again, Neil is going to start us off with this.
Thank you, Convener. Members, over the course of the last 2 years, our staffing review group has been working exceptionally hard to ensure our overall full-time equivalent teacher allocation best meets the needs of all schools and learners in an open, fair and equitable way. Building on the strengths identified in our recent Angus Council Best Value Report, we have ensured the principles of being data-driven in our decision-making have sat central to the approach in best meeting the needs of our schools and our learners. The Framework for Recovery and Accelerated Progress, alongside the National Improvement Framework, has helped to shape the thinking of the group, and the decisions taken in this report, I believe, reflect both our local and our national priorities. Introducing 13 principal teacher posts, 9 of which are principal teachers of inclusion in our specifically resourced schools, will allow progression for our own teaching workforce, as well as supporting senior managers and, of course, most importantly, the children in our schools. Using our overall full-time equivalent teacher allocation in a different way, albeit with a slight reduction, I feel provides schools with an approach to equality, inclusion and equity that allows them to continue to have a relentless pursuit of excellence and equity in their approaches to learning and teaching, and raising attainment and closing the poverty-related attainment gap. Finally, I'd like to thank all members of the review group, some of whom head teachers are here today, ASN colleagues, trade union colleagues, and all primary head teachers have had an input in the final primary staffing standard that remains in draft. Convener, I would recommend this report to committee and be happy to take any questions members may have.
Thank you very much, Neil. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Loudon, reading through the report, I'm wondering if you can maybe elaborate on something for us here, myself and perhaps anybody that's watching online. So in Part 6 under the financial implications, it says that the proposed amendments do not require an increase in the base budget, but at the same time, further in other parts of the Part 6 of that report, it says that there's going to be savings. So if we're making savings and we're not increasing the budget, where is that money being taken from to make these changes and to make the savings? So basically what I'm saying is, are we taking money away from other parts of education, whether that be buying resources, funding and all that thing, to pay for this so there's not an increase in the baseline of the budget? Or are there being savings, or are we making, what's happening there? Sorry, also with the principal teachers, if they're part of the management team, is that then, are we sort of moving in a direction where we have not enough Indians and too many chiefs, or are there too much in the way of management rather than we are with people actually teaching? Thank you.
So in terms of, there is an albeit a reduction in FTE allocation, and I've tried to outline that through the historical approach of allocating newly qualified teachers, that we no longer have those numbers, so the full-time equivalent is not there and the budget is there. But I felt I needed to be open and transparent in the paper. There is an uplift in salary from class teacher to principal teacher, which means we do have to almost spend while still making the saving. And the other direct saving is just a reduction in the amount of management time allocated to joint headships. But I can understand, Councillor Gregg, your differential between, well, where it was taking the money from. So that's where the money is directly coming from. There is no other reduction in any materials, specific materials, DSM budgets, etc., to pay for this. That would have been in the paper had that been the case. In terms of our FTE, we have, as an example, we work to 480 FTE in the primary school, but that includes all staff, head teachers, deputy head teachers, principal teachers and class teachers. So a class teacher and a head teacher are both included as one FTE, but they're paid differently. So there is no differential in terms of teacher numbers. We are not planning to reduce class teacher posts. We are planning to use our current workforce of class teachers to be principal teachers. And hopefully add capacity within, well, it'll be 13 schools, 9 specifically resourced, and then 4 schools based on school role.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Neil. If I could go to 4.3 and 4.4 on page 15. Any permanent increase is only considered after a full year of increased number of classes, and likewise any reductions. Is there flexibility in this if things aren't working out the way you had hoped, to be able to adapt and change accordingly? And would a report then come back to this committee? Because I would hate to think of things rumbling on for a full year if it wasn't helping? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bell. There is always flexibility within the system to overcome any unforeseen circumstances. For example, placing request appeals, etc. We wouldn't want to restructure whole schools, and we would have flexibility to use FTE if required in those circumstances. However, we run one main staffing and recruitment exercise, normally roughly between February and June each year, where we look at census figures from the previous September and projected figures that allow head teachers to create their class composition from August going forward, so as we can just staff them appropriately. And I would say in 99% of the cases that's sufficient, and we don't need to make any changes. Where the 1% happens, we keep and build in some flexibility to manage that.
Yeah, have you got your... Sorry, I repressed it. Just to say, I don't underestimate the amount of work that went into this, so all credit to everyone that was involved. It's an enormous piece of work. Having been involved in a smaller scale exercise when I still worked in the council, it's huge, really complex, so congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I just really appreciate this, because having worked in ASN myself many years ago, the numbers of children who have IEPs has gone up exponentially. I think when I was there it was about 20%, now it's between 30-34%. So it's a huge job to coordinate that, and I think this is very, very valuable indeed. So thank you again, Neil, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Speed.
Thank you, convener. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I just a little bit on the back of Councillor Gregg's questions. You kind of clarified the kind of financial aspects of this restructure, but I just wondered if there would be kind of any other kind of implications with regards to the restructure. Is there will be a shift in roles and responsibilities and work activity. So will there be any kind of negative consequences to that? Is there things that will stop happening because of the restructure within our schools?
Thank you, Councillor Speed. I'm really hoping there's no negative impact of the report on our schools. One thing that I have been open and transparent about in terms of the head teachers, and I have put it into the report, both into 6.4 and 6.5, is that any management post is subject to job sizing. So there is a job sizing exercise carried out in terms of management posts. So the only impact I see potentially positively or negatively would be on job sizing within senior management posts. But the sample that we did undertake showed no change. So I'm hopeful that if there were very rare cases of changes, we would be able to manage them within the system.
Thank you. Osborne would like to speak. Audrey, thank you for attending this meeting. I know you're not feeling very well, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Councillor Speed, for your question. Just from a resource schools point of view, I would say that, I have reported to committee previously on the increase in the level and complexity of need that there is in our schools. So by having a principal teacher of inclusion, that should help address the additional workload that's on all of our resource schools actually. In terms of coordinating our GIRFEC processes, arranging continuum of need meetings and reviews, planning individual education plans as well as child's plans, and importantly involving parents, carers, children and young people in that process. And that's all before you go about actually meeting the need on the ground. So as stakeholders in our ASN review, we have consulted with our head teachers of the resource schools, and some of whom are here today and can vouch for me. And they've said for a long time that would help address some of that additional workload and hopefully help these processes and the meeting of need go smoother. So it's something that's been sought for a while, and it would be helpful, I think, in addressing some of the challenges in our schools currently.
Thank you very much. Right, if there are no more questions or comments, that's the end of the meeting. I'd like to close it, but again, thank you very much for your attendance. Bye-bye. Oh, sorry, recommendations. It's 4 recommendations again. Do we agree? Thank you.
Can you stop the live?